I want to take a couple quick minutes here to show you guys some things about these stainless check valves and also about threads on parts. Okay, so this is stainless. That's regular, I don't know, galvanized steel. It looks to me like it's cast metal. I assume it probably extrudes out of a heat machine. Anyway, if you look down inside here, let's see if I can get the light in there just right. There we go. Okay, see the back set where the hinge is? Okay, sometimes you'll get like a little bit of impurities in the metal right at that location, and the doors will break off instantly. I had one do that before. Generally speaking, they're pretty good. That doesn't happen. Usually you get your life out of them. Another thing too, if you can start your pressure out low and run it for a while before you put the hard pressure to it, that's good to give it a little break-in time. Now look at the high-tech shape of the door here. Okay, here's the top side, or I guess in some applications that would be the bottom side. I guess, yeah, that's the bottom side for us too. Okay, now on this side here, you look at the door, you'll notice that the door has kind of like a little dimple down in there. And, I don't like that. I think I like the flat metal door better, and I don't think that they make them that way with the stainless ones, but they do with the brass ones. But the brass is soft, the stainless is hard. And I haven't decided what I'm thinking about stainless. Sometimes it gets brittle and breaks, where the copper stays a little more pliable, but sometimes also depends on how low grade the part is. Was this thing made in Habib's backyard where he was doing sand molding, making parts or something, and then spinning them out on the lathe to finish them? You know what I'm saying? Or, what is the grade quality here? I don't know if they're, they look pretty good. For the most part, I think they are. I think occasionally they just we'll have some impurities in the metal. And I wrote the manufacturer about that, and I showed him the problem and told him if there's a way to check the metal at the time being poured for impurities or clean it up a little better, that'd be desirable. Or maybe a way to scan the parts after they're made and then reject the ones that got the fissures in them that aren't any good. That'd probably be the right way to do it. But anyway, okay, so when this thing goes onto the machine and gets mounted in, there's a thread cutter that comes into here after it's been drilled. So first the part's casted, then it comes out, they drill it, and then from there they take the tap and spin the tap down in to cut the threads. And the same thing on here. This comes out of its mold and all that, gets cooled off, and then put on the machine, and then the threads get spun. Well, sometimes the threading machine will cut just a little bit deep, and when it does, it leaves the thread a little bit thin. Like this one's a little bit thin, and you can tell because after I'd screwed the part on all the way down to there, it didn't really bunch this up, and it should have bunched that up. And because it didn't, that means that it's a good part. The guy, it was made correctly, but for our application, tighter tolerances is preferred. But in this case, this valve gets taken off a lot, so this gets kind of worn down a little anyway. So I'm going to give this one a double wrap at first. So let me do that here real quick. And then, and the reason I'm doing this is because when the parts get overspun on the machine and a little bit too much metal gets taken off, it takes more than 3 turns of thread tape to make the part go tight. And in this particular case, we want the check valve to be aligned straight here. We don't want this crooked look here. That kind of sucks. We want it like that. So to get this straight, I could even go to this side, and that's fine too. And this is the preferred side, so that the door swings back this direction and not this direction. It's not going to hurt it to go this way. This way is just preferred. I think it, in my opinion, I think the door lasts longer. I think that because of the way the water comes up and out in a J shape, I think that that's just more natural. These things wear out really quick, so anything you can do to try to extend the life is helpful. The other thing too, to extend the life of your two check valves, is make sure this thing is not cocked off sideways, perfectly plumb. Put a magnetic level on it. And same thing this way, you want it level in this direction too. And the reason why is because this valve here has got a straight shaft. And if you get this thing crooked, the shaft holder is going to start wearing crooked. So if you keep this very straight, it keeps the hole perfectly round and keeps it from wearing out. So that extends the life of the part. Eventually it's going to burn out just from the number of hits anyway. Only so many licks till you get to the center of the tippy-top. So make sure to have extra parts sitting on the shelf in advance so that when they break, you keep going. And then be ready to buy your next set after that, because you'll go through, depending on how much pumping you do. I shut mine down when my tank is full, and then I don't just let it sit there and keep clapping and running, because that just wipes out the metal and I got to buy another one. So I go down and actually turn it off, and that's why I put the cam locks onto the front of this, so I can just take the pump off, bring it back up to the farmhouse, and wait till the next filling. And they last really long if you use, obviously much longer that way than just letting them sit out there and pointlessly run, just circulating water in and out of your tank. Now, circulating water in and out of your tank is good, but nevertheless, if your water's underground, it should store good enough that doing that is kind of a waste, especially for how bad your parts will get wiped out. So, just remember when you're looking at your threads and you're buying them at the store, to kind of try to test fit some of this stuff to see how the threads are aligned on the parts and things, and just see how they loosely feel. And when you start screwing them together, you'll feel a certain amount of friction or a certain amount of clean turn. And the more you play with these, the more you kind of read what you're feeling when you're screwing them together. Because sometimes you'll have a little bit of shit on the edge of the thread there, like that little spot. And that's just enough of a little nick to make it that if this was actually up to there, it'd get hard to turn. So sometimes you kind of want to examine your stuff a little bit. And if you got a whole shelf full of parts, cherry pick it. Get the best ones. So that's it. Pick good parts, check your threads. All right, I want to show you this thread here. I want to make some comments about this. I already wrapped this with tape. This is a brand new part. So you see that, how much tape is in there? I put the part on. I put the part on, screwed it on, and I've already screwed it off, and there's that much tape in there. It should have pushed it up, is what would typically happen. So what's being indicated here is that when the part was made, it was overspun on the machine a little bit, and they took just a little bit too much metal. Now that's within tolerance, but we're making ram pumps out of this. We're not just taking round pipe and shoving it down. We want things to kind of be aligned. So when I screw the valve down tight, the problem we have here, of course, is that once you screw that on and it goes down to about tight, oh, it's doing a little better this time. Yeah, it's gonna, all right, now we're getting to the weird zone. That actually did pretty good, huh? All right, the second, maybe I just needed to second cut the thread tape. The point I'm trying to stress here is you got to work these parts a little bit, especially this joint here, because you're going to be taking this valve off and on a lot, so you can let sticks and sand out of here, or just to look in there to examine things, and also because these fucking things wear out. In fact, I just had a brand new one where the little hinge down in there broke right at the back set, and it did it within the first day of use. So even having stainless doesn't guarantee good stuff. And it's reasonably good, but if you look in there, the metal's a tad bit thin, not horribly thin, but just enough so that if the casting is a little, if you got impurities in the casting right there in that round part, or right at the crotch, that's where they will snap. So be aware of that. And see this door, it's kind of a high-tech looking shape to the door. Now, let me show you the other end of it. I was going to wrap this with one more coat of tape, but I don't think I'm going to now. Or I might have put the wrong end of the part on. Let's see what I do here. Oh, I did. I put the part on upside down, so I got to check the other thread. See, when you're mating your threads, oh, it did finally rough it up that time, but that's what you should be seeing when the threads fit good. You should only be putting 3 wraps of tape on your joint. That's the common number that they teach in plumbing school, is 3 turns. All right, I got a little bit of shit here. Oh, what's going on? You know, and with these stainless parts too, you got to be careful because stainless heats up really easy. You got to make your cuts really slow. If you don't make your cuts really slow, the metal tempers up and color streaks, and then it just turns hard as a diamond, and then it just fucks up your drill bits and everything else you're working with. So these things here, the threads can get galled kind of easy too, so be careful. I typically like to turn in the back direction until I feel the drop point where the 2 edges come together. And this part's not wanting to sit as flat as it should right now. Typically, it's being kind of weird. It's acting like it's bent or something. There's some shit on the edge or something. I'm seeing a little bit of metal filing in there. That's not good. See, this is the kind of shit trouble you have with these things from time to time. Okay, there we go. Now it's going on good. Yeah, I must have just blew something out of there. Okay, now, when this is on and it goes tight, let's see if we can get good direction on it. Yeah, see, when it stops, it's right there. Because like I was saying, that thread was overspun. So as you can see, you know, wherever the cutting starts on the part, when the spinner comes in to do the cutting, it's not necessarily going to be in the same place on the part every time. I mean, it's pretty close, but there's a little variance to it. And if they overcut it, it gets a little thin like this one. So I probably will wrap this with tape again, just so that I can get this knuckle straight aligned with the part like this.